Hello there, AP World History students. My name is Luis Silva, and today we're looking at AP World History, the Roman achievements, and the legacy, including Christianity. But before moving on, I want to remind you to subscribe to this channel, to like this video, and also to share this video so that we can help out more students get ready to take their AP World History exam. But what will we learn today? We are going to analyze the contributions of Hellenistic and Roman culture. This includes laws, gender, and also science. Let's move on. Roman achievements. The Romans developed innovations that are still used today because of Rome's location along the Mediterranean Sea, which allowed for trade and cultural diffusion with other cultures. Through cultural diffusion, the Romans borrow ideas from other civilizations like the Greeks and also improve upon these ideas. The wealth of the Roman Empire, especially in the Pax Romana, allowed the Romans to promote culture and also inventions. Let's move on. This is the Roman world. As you can see, they control a vast territory and they were able to spread their culture throughout all of these areas. Like we mentioned before, Rome's location along the Mediterranean Sea allowed for trade and the movement of ideas, the movement of different concepts. This is known as cultural diffusion. Through cultural diffusion, the Romans borrow ideas from other civilizations, in particular the Greeks, and they also made those ideas even better. The wealth of the Roman Empire, especially in the Pax Romana, allowed the Romans to promote culture and inventions throughout all of the areas that they were controlling. Roman architecture. The Romans were tremendous builders who were improved upon Greek designs with two new architectural features. These are the arches and domes. But what are arches? First, they are curved structures over an opening that can support its own weight, were used by the Romans to create enormous buildings like the Colosseum and the Pantheon. Domes were basically created open spaces in buildings. The Romans built arenas so thousands of people could attend, circuses or entertainment events. And here we have an example, and in this case, a class activity. Compare the images of the Roman Colosseum and that of the Georgia Dome. Now write three similarities that you can see or assume about their architecture. At the top you have what the Romans built, and at the bottom you basically have the Georgia Dome. What are the similarities? Did we borrow from them? Did we take ideas from them in order to create these architectural structures? Please make sure that you find three different things that are very similar here. You're comparing and contrasting Roman architecture with current building designs. Now, Roman religion. Romans were initially polytheistic and required that conquered people show respect for their gods. During the Pax Romana, Christianity began and spread along the roads and trade routes throughout the Roman Empire. Early Christians were persecuted for their beliefs. Some became martyrs who sacrificed themselves for their beliefs. Now let's look at this class activity. Examine the timeline to the right-hand side. What are the three most important events in the history of Christianity during the Roman Empire? You're more than welcome to pause this video, analyze this timeline, and answer these questions here. Very important because Christianity, it's a lasting legacy of the Roman Empire that we have today, and I don't think it's going away. It's part of the Roman legacy, very important in AP World History, in particular when you focus on the different religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Confucianism. So you're comparing everything to Christianity. Now, the Roman law. Roman laws were made by the Senate and then posted for the people to see, called the 12 Tables. The Roman legal system included a criminal court system with lawyers and juries, so people accused of crimes could defend themselves. Witnesses could be called to give witness testimony. Roman law allowed anyone, including the poor and slaves, to accuse others of crimes. Very important concept that we have today also. Now let's look at this class activity. Examine this excerpt from a new Georgia law. Number 1. Assuming that the state of Georgia borrowed ideas from the Romans, what similarities can you make between Georgia laws and Roman laws? Number 2. If a police officer unfairly gave you a ticket for texting while driving, what Roman legal ideas could you use? Now, once again, you're more than welcome to pause this video so that you can read about the Georgia law and see the similarities. You're comparing and contrasting, which are very important skills when you are taking your AP World History exam. Let's move on. Now let's go to Roman government. In 509 BC, the Romans overthrew the last Roman king and established a new form of government known as a republic. See, this is a big concept because the United States is a republic. You're comparing and contrasting. The Romans created a republic to prevent any one person from gaining too much power. They had a senate made up of 300 men that made laws and selected 2 consuls to command the army and run the day-to-day affairs of Rome. Let's move on. Now let's look at this class activity. Match each description of American government with its equal from the Roman Republic. Once again, to the right hand side, you have the Roman government in 264 BC. You see that you have 2 consuls way at the top. Underneath the consul, you had the senators, the tribunes, and lastly, you had citizen assemblies, which was made up of adult male citizens. And now, what you are to do here is you are to basically match each component of the American government, like borders, the president, the Senate, the House of Representatives, to the Roman Republic government. You're more than welcome to pause this video so that you can play around and see where the borders fall, see where the president falls, see where the Senate falls, and see where the House of Representatives falls. Very important distinctions here and comparisons between the Roman government and the current structure of the United States government. Let's move on. Now let's move to some infrastructure, in this case, Roman roads. The Romans built the largest and longest lasting network of roads in the ancient world. At the height of the empire, Roman roads stretched for 56,000 miles and also included 29 major highways. At first, the roads were built to move soldiers quickly from one area to another area, but eventually the routes also served many people and different purposes, such as the movement of trade throughout the Roman Empire. Now let's continue looking at the Roman roads. Class activity. Guess what the Romans used for each of the 4 layers to make their roads. Number 2. Today we use a similar system to make roads. What layers do we no longer use? And here you have the network of roads that were put together by the Romans to the right hand side. And at the bottom right hand side, you see how roads were actually designed and put together. The Romans made concrete by mixing lime and volcanic rock. For underwater structures, lime and volcanic ash were mixed to form mortar. And this mortar and volcanic tuff were packed into wooden forms. The seawater instantly triggered a hot chemical reaction. The lime was hydrated, incorporating water molecules into its structure, and reacted with the ash to cement the whole mixture together. This is basically how the Romans built the roads. Now let's move on to Roman aqueducts. One of the Romans' greatest and most practical engineering feat was the channeling of water to their towns and cities. Roman engineers built the aqueducts to move the cold, clear water from springs over 250 miles into towns. Some of the aqueducts are still standing today and in use. One in Spain is a 2-tier aqueduct that is 95 feet above the ground and is 2,388 feet long. Very impressive historical testament by the Romans in Spain. Now let's look at this class activity. If the curvy line between the lake and the Roman city represents hills and valleys, how would the Romans get their water to the city? Sketch an aqueduct that connects the lake and the city. You're more than welcome to analyze this and sketch how you would do it. How will you get water, fresh water, to the city? Let's move on. Now let's look at Roman language. Roman conquest spread Latin throughout much of Europe. Over time, different regions in Europe developed languages based on Latin. Languages based on Latin are known as Romance languages. Words in the 5 major Romance languages often sound alike. For example, the Latin word for freedom. And I may mispronounce these words, but you get the idea of how Latin influenced many languages. So in this case, libertas translates as libertà in Italian, liberte in French, libertad in Spanish, liberdade in Portuguese, and libertate in Romanian. So you see how Roman languages, or Roman language in this case, influence the languages of other countries around the world. Also remember that Spain conquered basically all of what we know today as Latin America, and as well as Portugal and Brazil. So the languages, the Roman influence, came all the way to what we know today as Latin America. This includes Mexico, Central America, as well as South America. Now let's review this class activity. Notice how many modern languages come from Latin. Guess each of the 3 words in the modern English box and write them in your chart. You're more than welcome to pause this video so that you can complete this activity and see the connection between our modern day language and how Latin influenced those languages. And now let's move to the Roman calendar. The Romans began using a new solar calendar that was borrowed heavily from the Egyptian calendar and had been improved by the scholars of Alexandria. This new calendar, called the Julian calendar after Julius Caesar, had 365 days and 1 extra day every 4 years. And in this case, July was named after Julius Caesar because it included his birthday. Now let's look at this class activity. 3 months on the Julian calendar are named after famous Romans. 1 is July, so you have 2 more to find. Number 1, what are the 2 other months? And number 2, who are they named after? Let's move on. Roman civil service. Rome's first emperor, Augustus, created several systems to help himself rule an enormous empire. Augustus set up a civil service with a salaried, experienced workers to take care of the empire. These bureaucrats help oversee the empire by keeping track of grain, the roads, the postal service, and all other things needed to run the empire. Once again, if you're comparing and contrasting, the United States also has a civil service system, and these ideas were also borrowed from the Romans. Now let's look at this class activity, answer these questions. Why do you think that Augustus formed the civil service? Name 3 civil service jobs that allow the president to do his job better. You're more than welcome again to pause this video so that you can answer those questions. Remember, you're comparing and contrasting. In this case, the Roman government style, civil service style, to the United States way of operating as a government. Now, as a closure activity, why do you think scholars call the era of the Pax Romana Rome's golden age? Look at the legacy that has been left. And 2, which Roman achievements do you think is the most important one? Once again, you're more than welcome to select any achievement, languages, roads, infrastructure. You must justify your answer by explaining why. We have now come to the end of this presentation. Please do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to like this video. And do not forget to share this video so that we can help out more students. prepare and pass their AP World History exam. I will see you in the next presentation.